Welcome to Swayam MOOC course NGOs and Sustainable Development, Unit 4, Module 29, Ecological Economics. Learning Objectives. By the end of this module, you will be able to learn about ecological economics, understand the concepts, principles, and the importance of ecological economics for sustainability. The need for ecological sustainability has escalated in recent times because of deforestation, overfishing, generation of hazardous waste, excessive grazing by animals and cattle, contamination of land, air, water. Additionally, cases indicate how severely the nature's rhythm has been disrupted because of diversity loss as well as climate change. We need to understand how human behavior is connected to changes in hydrological, nutrient, or carbon cycles. What are the interactions between the social and ecological systems feedback? How do these affect the ecosystem services that we receive? Our most urgent current issues affecting sustainability are acid rain, global warming, species extinction, and unequal wealth distribution. All these have a say on sustainable development. So, ecosystems and societies are right now in serious distress condition. For this, we need to understand the underlying factors, the interlinkages, the study of the cost and benefit relating to the ecosystem in the society is the need for the hour. These kinds of concerns are attempted to be addressed in the field of ecological economics. This calls for fundamental transformations in how we transfer or how we perceive economic theory and put it into practice. Ecological economics can be traced back to the 19th century. Ecological economics is a developing field. It's a transdisciplinary discipline. It seeks to advance and broaden the economic theory by incorporating the natural systems of the planet, the human values, human health, as well as the well-being. In its broadest sense, ecological economics examines the connection between the ecosystem as well as the economic system. Now, let us understand what is economics. Economics is the study of how scarce or the limited resources are distributed among various competing goals. It calls for effective allocation while trying to achieve the objective. The objective could be maximization of profit, or it could be market share or efficiency, or sometimes the vice versa, minimizing the cost or the loss. Take for example a ship. In order to load the ship effectively, the weight must be distributed evenly from the front to the back and on both sides of the keel of the ship for the ship to float evenly and steadily in the water. While efficiently loading the cargo, it is very crucial to see that the cargo is evenly spaced in the ship. However, care has to be taken the cargo is not loaded in excess that the ship can carry. So, all these aspects need to be considered while arranging the cargo in the ship so that there is a benefit from all that has been taken over. So, the people who have been working on this domain on the field of economics include Holling and Howard Odum, who are regarded as the philosophical forebears and precursors of ecological economics. So, also economists such as Kenneth Boulding and Herman Daly. However, Nicholas Georgescu Roegen, who worked between 1906 and 1994, a Romanian mathematician, statistician, and an economist, is considered the father of ecological economics. Now, how do we look at ecological economics? As shown in the picture, we find that economy is at the core of ecological economics, but it doesn't stop with economy. The superseding layer encumbering the economy is the society, and over and above that, we have the environment. The core idea of ecological economics is that there are unalterable limits to human economic activity. These limits are not entirely fixed, however, since they are co-determined by fixed like planetary boundaries as well as dynamic factors such as social factors, values, etc. The larger system of the society and the environment hence encloses the economy. Ecological economics is a cross-disciplinary field. We cannot restrict it to either ecology or to economics, but rather as a link between the two fields. In addition, it is linked to other fields such as psychology, anthropology, archaeology, as well as history also. Now let us see the characteristics of ecological economics. Ecological economics has evolved in a different paradigm than that of the conventional neoclassical economics, which is largely based on mechanistic principles. Ecological economics generally assumes a longer time horizon. It pays more attention to the cause and effect chain, interactions, feedback between the natural and the human economic systems. Ecological economics is concrete and very specific. It evaluates sustainable development as being a condition where the scale of the economy doesn't exceed the ultimate carrying capacity of the planet. Ecological economics emphasizes the needs are to be fulfilled and there is an equitable distribution of wealth. It is evaluated from a multidimensional perspective, and most important, it focuses on environmental ethics. Now let us see how conventional or the traditional economics is looked at. According to traditional economics, increasing the amount of goods and services produced by the human industries is the main objective. The gross domestic product, called as the GDP, is the national indicator of the total amount of value of the goods and services that is produced in a country. Traditional economics makes the assumption that the ever increasing GDP is desirable, feasible, and advantageous to everyone. So, when we look at the country's wealth, it is normally we look at the GDP of the country. The offshoot of traditional economics is environmental economics. Now, let us see what is environmental economics so that we can understand the distinction between ecological economics and environmental economics. Though the words look alike, there is a difference. So now let us first see what is the characteristics of environmental economics. Environmental economics gives priority to efficiency. Environmental economics focuses on short to medium term horizon, while ecological economics looks at the long term horizon. Environmental economics are abstract and general. Its evaluation is based on the cost benefit analysis and the focus is on utilitarianism and functionalism. Now, how does ecological economics differ from environmental economics? It is clearly visible from the picture that economics is at the core of ecological economics and it is surrounded by society and the environment. Whereas, if it is environmental economics, each is a separate discipline and there is found to be an overlap. So, this is the basic difference between environmental economics and ecological economics. So, ecological economics, the goal of ecological economics is to combine the study of everything both inside and outside the market in a holistic manner. Environmental economics is a sub-discipline of economics. It involves applying conventional economic principles to the environment. So the way both of them looks at the economics is completely different. The fact that we live on a finite earth or that the economy as a subsystem cannot develop infinitely into a bigger contained system are both concepts that conventional economics doesn't fully acknowledge, which is the basic premise of environmental economics. Now let us see the core of ecological economics. The fundamental principle of equity for all can be understood as the pursuit of sustainable development, which includes intra and intergenerational equity. So, this principle is included in ecological economics. The idea that the economy is part of a larger local and global ecology places restrictions on how quickly the economy can expand physically. A methodological approach based on thorough systems analysis and the physical, namely materials, energy, chemical, biological indicators. These modest areas of overlap are intended to be expanded via the ecological economics. The neoclassical environmental economics and the ecological impact studies will be included as subgroups, but it will also promote novel perspectives on the connections between the ecological and the economic systems. So, ecological economy aims to deepen the scientific understanding of the complex relationship which encompasses both the human system as well as the natural system, so that it is able to create effective policies that will result in a world which is economically sustainable, ecologically sustainable, has a fair distribution of its resources, and is able to effectively use those resources which are scarce. Now, let us look at ecological economics in terms of the capital. There are four main capital present, which is the built capital, the natural capital, the social capital, and the human capital. All these four capital are important in determining the ecological economics. Now, when it comes to the built capital is the kind of capital that traditional economics is used to. It alludes to products, services which is produced by the human industry, such as the structures, vehicles, appliances, infrastructure. So, products or services that is traditionally produced comes under the built capital. Next, coming to the natural capital. The idea of natural capital acknowledges the significance and worth of the products and services that nature offers. The nature gives us a lot of resources, and these resources are termed as the natural capital. Consideration of the planetary system functions such as the provision of breathable air, a stable temperature are all capital that we receive from the nature. In other terms, capital is nothing but money. So the air that we breathe, clean water that the nature provides are all wealth that we get, and hence it is treated as the natural capital. Sometimes it is possible to estimate the monetary value of these ecosystem services, such as what is the price it requires to replace them. However, it is very difficult if you are going to convert it in terms of monetary terms, the air that we breathe. So, it is very difficult to convert it in monetary terms. But if we are able to do it, then we will be able to measure the natural capital. Next, coming to the social capital. The advantages we receive by interacting with people, our friends, family, social groups, is the social capital. So it also includes the social network, the public projects that we have, the interactions we have with the other organizations, the amount of trust, team building, honesty, reliability we have with the social group in which we are networked, the standards that is set, the ethical standards, moral standards, all this come into the social capital framework. Although it greatly contributes to our well-being as a whole, it is difficult again to attach a monetary value to the social capital. The fourth capital is the human capital. Human capital is nothing but human beings. The human beings are equivalent to money. The individual well-being, the life experiences that each one gets, the education, the talent, skills that each individual is made up of becomes the human capital. Thus, understanding all these capital in relation with the ecosystem services is significant if we need to have a healthy human well-being. So as the picture indicates, we have the social capital, build capital and human capital. To this, our ecosystem provides the natural capital such as the air, water, a clean atmosphere. So all this together helps us to live a happy, healthy life, and hence it results in human well-being. So the three interrelated goals of ecological economics includes a sustainable scale, fair distribution and efficient allocation. All these is required if we need to contribute for human well-being as well as sustainability. Now let us see what is this sustainable scale. The ecological literature on carrying capacity, which refers to the number of creatures on the ecosystem can support, sheds light on the issues to the extent that the ecosystem can carry. So this is called as the maximum sustainable scale that the ecosystem can hold on to. The carrying capacity of every species is established by the combination of the well-being and decimating influences. The well-being aspects for wildlife species are four elements that make up a species habitat, which is food, water, cover and space. Predators, illness and bad weather are all the devastating contributors. So all this is considered when we are going to measure the sustainable scale, which is the maximum holding capacity of the planet. The ecosystem's carrying capacity for typical animal species is represented in terms of the maximum number of individuals that it can sustain or the species that it can sustain. Next, coming to distribution, a fair distribution. Influence of distribution on the social capital and the quality of life is just one of the many factors. Overly unequal wealth distribution leads to conflict among the social groups. So, studies have shown that societies with greater levels of inequality have been less productive, and they also spend a lot of energy to ensure that this gap does not exist. The traditional approach tends to neglect the fact that distribution has a lot of direct and indirect feedback on how the society is actually working. It simply overemphasizes on having more, with the notion that the more we have, the more we can share with others, and also the more we have also leads to a happiness, which may not necessarily be the case. Fair distribution cannot be effectively pursued in ecological economics unless sustainable scale has already been attained or is in the verge of being attained. Fair distribution attempts will always fail if sustainable scale is not a policy aim. Economic expansion continues to be the goal, and this results in exceeding the maximum sustainable scale. So that is what we are witnessing in the present day, where the industries are coming up everywhere trying to satisfy the needs of the local population. So on one hand, we are producing more and more than what is required, and this is not possible for the planet to carry, and so we are falling short in the sustainable scale. History demonstrates that once development boundaries are crossed, it automatically results in conflicts because the fighters, the losers and the winners, fight over the natural resources, and the winners take over the natural resources. So in many instances we find that there is constant war happening for the natural resources between developed countries for oil. Wherever there is a oil source found, we find that that particular country becomes the leader because they find that this oil can be traded. However, it's a natural resource which needs to be very conservatively used. A social contract is necessary for peaceful and just cooperation, in which members of the society can pledge to live sustainably and to fairly distribute the natural resources which belongs to everyone, not necessarily a particular region or a particular country. This social contract would be represented in ecological economics through maybe the minimum wage or the income gap or distribution of returns among the community, so that there is a fair distribution of wealth to every sector, to every community and every individual. The third is allocation. Allocation is important within the mainstream economics, which involves exchange of goods and services, which needs to be done in an effective manner. However, there is a lengthy number of assumptions that are becoming less and less plausible, not the least of which is that there must be no externalities in order to believe that the market is efficient at allocating resources. In actuality, the internalities of what is happening in the market are smaller than the natural and social externalities. We cannot anticipate the market to allocate the resources effectively when there is a dispute. As we have already noted, ecological economics deals with embedded interactions between the economy, the society, and the environment, keeping sustainability at the forefront. According to ecological economics, the economy is seen as an open system, as part of a wider social and a natural system. As shown in the picture, we take resources from the nature, and these resources gets into the society, and in the society, depending upon the requirement, it is apportioned and it is circulated, it gets transformed, and in the process it gets consumed. After it is consumed, the excretion comes out as waste. So this is the process that happens. And when we look at economy also can be seen as an open system which involves all these processes of input, process and output. The carrying capacity of the biosphere, or its capacity to support the material throughput, is known as social metabolism. The majority of ecological economists subscribe to the strong sustainability approach, which makes the assumption that other kinds of capital can only be substituted for natural capital to a very limited extent. Critical natural capital, which is known as the CNC, refers to the indispensable, non replaceable stocks of natural capital. In ecological economics, it is believed that our knowledge of the social and natural system, or the socio-ecological system when they are combined, is fundamentally limited. It leaves us in the dark and sometimes even ignorant of what is the actual process that is happening and what are their linkages. The precautionary principle, or the safe minimum requirement principle, states that it is the ability of the system to sustain a particular condition in the face of such disturbances. It is essential that we understand ecological economics in a holistic manner, understand the underlying linkages, and understand what is the minimum resources required to sustain the species, the human and the animal species, the aquatic species, so that the ecosystem can balance it and there is a benefit out of all this costs happening. So, to arrive at this, we need to measure, and for measuring, an analytical approach can be carried out. However, this analytical approach of measuring the economics of the ecology requires to be holistic. The perspective has to be holistic and pluralistic. It adopts a system with perspective viewing ecological and economic processes less from the standpoint of individuals and more from a system's point of view, so that a holistic picture emerges. It embraces diversity in methods, perspectives, and ideals. However, it is debatable to what extent this diversity is acceptable or rational. The inability of arriving at measures, concrete values, when we look at a holistic picture, is a deficiency and it has to be overcome. Now let us see the principles of ecological economics. As already stated, we know that economy is at the center, at the core, and it is embedded inside the society, and the society is embedded inside the environment. Now, when we look at the principles of ecological economics, we know that economy is a nested system. The economy is a living system that is nested inside other living systems and the environment, which is the earth, and it also includes the overall earth system, which is the Gaia. The peaceful coexistence of all these systems requires, and it is essential for a healthy evolutionary process. Principle 2, economy is viewed as a network. Now, when we look at economy, every organization is linked to other organization, and the output of one organization becomes the input to another organization. So, in the way, every organization is networked to each other. The underlying organizational structure of all biological systems, according to the system's view of life, is the network. Since a network is a specific pattern of connections and links, thinking in terms of patterns and relationship is the very core of systems thinking. Given that networks are the fundamental unit of an organization, an economy needs to be structured as a network. It is made up of smaller networks, and all these smaller networks gets integrated to become a larger social and ecological network. As a result, we should develop an integrated local and regional network where innovative thinking is blended with real world experiments to address our environmental and socio-economic concerns. Cooperative network conversations enable us to be receptive to the pluralistic view that go beyond the conventional one-dimensional monetary scale of the economy. Ecological economics is multidimensional. Now coming to principle 3, economy is viewed as an open system. So what do we mean by the open system? It means that it is open, it is exposed to the constant flow of matter and energy, and all that happens in the system that comes into the system has an outlet and it is generated as waste. So we need to look at ecological economy as an open system which receives input from various sources and processes it, consumes it in the process, as well as lets out a waste. However, in nature, organisms group together to form communities called ecosystems, where the waste of one species will be used as a food to another species, causing matter to cycle continuously through the ecosystem so that the energy is not lost in the process. But when it comes to mankind, human beings don't have this continuous cycle. It is essential that we follow this ecosystem where it is continuous. The value chain is continuous, or in other words, it is circular. Reducing waste that is returned to nature and the usage of new natural resources have to be made in the circular value chain. Government, manufacturers, distributors, consumers must work towards the circular value chain so that we are able to create circular material cycles also. The basis for the relationship between economy and nature is how circular are we making the value chain. Our capacity to identify the relationship between the input and the output of natural resources in the economic value chain is most essential if we want to achieve sustainable development. Cooperation with nature is required on both sides in order to create an economy that improves the quality of life. According to this viewpoint, carbon dioxide is a symptom for a carbon based economy rather than a cause. To put it another way, we need to be aware of the patterns of interconnectivity between the input and the output sides of the economy if we are to effectively address climate change. So, if we are going to look at the circular economy, nothing is a waste. So, the output of one will be used as an input to another process. So, in such a way, the circular value chain will continue and will create very little waste in the process. Finally, there is a reciprocal relationship between economy and culture. To create an economy that improves quality of life, the knowledge and the value and the culture of that system has to be clearly understood so that this circular value chain is accepted by one and all. Now, coming to principle 4, economy as a cognitive interaction, wherein ethics becomes the core. Although ethics is typically linked to philosophy or religion, it can also be thought as a form of scientific and spiritual entity. We discover that nature sustains life through fostering communities when we examine the lengthy history of the evolution of life on Earth. Communities whose members operate in the interest of the group as a whole gain from individual selection and nature's selection. This is what we call as the ethical behavior in human society. Ethics is about how we behave when no one is around us in a community. It is the conduct of individuals and it ensures that we serve for the welfare of everyone concerned. Now let us see, how does sustainability relate to ecological economics. Ecological economics reminds us that sustainability is a multifaceted goal by focusing on the complex interrelationships between different types of sustainability. We have seen ecological sustainability, social sustainability, and economic sustainability, which are considered as the three pillars of sustainability. As we've already seen, sustainability is interlinked with several domains, and for achieving sustainability, all the three domains have to work together. Similarly, in the same way, ecological economics, calculating ecological economics also draws its requirements, inputs from several places. It serves as a reminder of the intricacy of the various interconnected systems that make up the biosphere, as well as the unpredictability that characterizes the complex systems. So now when we look at ecological sustainability, the preservation or restoration of the ecosystem processes, including the diversity of plant and animal population and the ecological system's productive capability, is referred to ecological sustainability. Now, how do we ensure, what are the parameters that go into ecological sustainability has to be identified, and after identifying these parameters, we need to find out how is it we are going to measure these parameters so that we arrive at ecological economics. Next, coming to social sustainability, it talks about the robust inclusive communities where people have a say, and based on their requirements and need, government act. Inclusive, just, and a resilient community is where citizens have a voice and government listen. And this is essential for social sustainability. Now, how do I ensure? What are the parameters of social sustainability? Once we have identified the parameters of social sustainability, we need to measure it. So, measuring such abstract concepts is a little tricky, but people are working towards it. Next, coming to economic sustainability. Economic sustainability refers to actions that promote long-term economic growth without having a negative effect on the community's social, environmental, and cultural factors. Now, all these dimensions have to be measured, have to be measurable so that ecological economics can be obtained. Now, future directions and challenges of ecological economics. Although ecological economics is now fairly established in academics, however, it is still very young, and many research is going on to find out what would be the measures and how do we arrive at a quantitative number, a quantitative value for ecological economics. It emphasizes and what are the vulnerable areas, what are the interlinkages, and also identifies how to pinpoint where action has to be taken depending on the high value domains. For instance, the American School of Ecological Economics emphasizes sustainable scale is very important if we are going to talk of ecological economics, while the European approach places considerable emphasis on distribution of wealth. So, ecological economics is a growing domain where several researchers are working to quantify, identify measures and indicators so that we can identify where we need to concentrate so that we are arriving at sustainability at the end. The first decade of the 21st century brought about significant alterations in the social, political, ecological, and economic spheres. The direction ecological economic takes for the duration of the 21st century will be influenced by the current research that is getting on and how these research are going to be put into practice. There are certain plus and minus of ecological economics. The benefit of ecological economics is that it tells a straightforward and a very understandable story. For example, a society can use up the non renewable resources, whatever is available, provided it is able to compensate to that extent with renewable energy sources. However, the difficulty of communicating these facts using economic jargon is one of the ecological economic weaknesses. The goal of ecological economics is to maintain the resilience of ecological and socio-economic systems by conserving and investing in the natural, social, and human resources. Ecological economics is concerned with the issue of ensuring sustainability in the face of unpredictability. True economic efficiency is the goal of ecological economics. However, research is still going on and people are trying to quantify ecological economics from a holistic point of view since it encompasses economics, society, as well as the environment. Now, let us see a few questions and the answers in this module. Question 1. What is the purpose of ecological economics? Ecological economics recognizes local to global environmental limits. It ranges from research for short term policy and local challenges through to long term visions of sustainable societies. Ecological economists also consider global issues such as carbon emissions, deforestation, overfishing, and species extinctions. Question 2. What is the difference between environmental economics as against ecological economics? As we have seen in a nutshell, environmental economics considers environmental resource scarcity as the Ricardian relative scarcity phenomena, whereas ecological economics perceives it as an absolute scarcity phenomenon having a holistic picture considering economy, society, and the environment. What is the difference between green economics and ecological economics? Green economy focuses on clean production and consumption process only, whereas ecological economics stresses more on ecological sustainability. So, in this module, what has it we have studied? We have learned about ecological economics, understood the concepts, principles, and the importance of learning ecological economics. Thank you.